It broke. Yes, my 1997 Ducati Supersport has let me down right after I was shooting the last week's video. Actually, I was out riding it around, and after doing anything on the highway, it would shut off, just stop running. And I pretty quickly figured out what the problem was, just kind of intuition. And we're freehand here, so I can show you what's going on. Here on the top of the tank, we have this nipple here, goes into this chamber up here, which is pretty much entirely closed off from the main fuel tank. There's two little pinholes in there, and that acts as kind of a stop gap from keeping gas from getting up in here too much, because this is a pressure relief, or rather vacuum relief valve vent for the fuel tank. You know, you drain liquid out and, well, it leaves a vacuum there, so air has to come in. And that goes to this hose here, which has a one-way check valve in it. Check valve works great, but when I tried to blow air through this or suck air through this, nothing happened. So that was suspicious and obviously the source of my problem. And it only was apparent after a lot of hard riding, which, you know, this bike was probably never ridden all that hard by the previous owners at least. So what I did was I took off the fuel cap and the fuel filler surround thing, and reached on in here and felt around for those two little holes and did not find them. What I did find was what you see there. That is a coating on the inside of the tank, and here's coating outside of the tank, because I tried to find the holes and they were covered up so well that I ended up just kind of pulling this off, and it came off very easy because there was no de-rusting done before this was put in the tank. It all just kind of came off along with a layer of rust. So that's fun. So what that also did was absolutely shower rust into my fuel. I don't know if you can see it in there. You can see, yeah. You can sort of see the surface rust. It's not terrible, it is just surface rust, but it's pretty scaly and it's getting in the fuel. And also I have a whole bunch of that coating still on there. You can also see down there the fuel pump sock and how I'm currently draining out the fuel. That line there usually attaches around the fuel filler, and that is to collect any gas that you spill and redirect it down onto the ground. So what I've done is I've dunked it in the gas to make a siphon, which is going down the bike and overflowing out of my fuel can. That's not great. Let's just pull that out of the gas now. Okay, I guess my fuel can is a lot smaller than I thought. Well, there's just a lot more gas here than I thought. Wonderful. Okay, guess I gotta deal with this now. Well, I've heard of naked bikes, but this is ridiculous. It's over there. Anyway, this is what sits underneath that tank. Here you can see access to the apparently adjustable rear shock. That's pretty neat. Looks like it's you can adjust your height via the preload, and then it looks like you've got damping as well, which is pretty cool. And then also under there you can kind of see that plate and that plate. You take those off to access the valve train and adjust the Desmo valve system, which needs to be done needs to be checked every 7,000 miles on these, I think. Doesn't look like too bad a job to get right under there. As far as the fuel lines went, we had this weird valve here, another regular line, and then this thing that wasn't even clamped on. I think this is this is that drain. Yeah, this is that overflow drain that I used to siphon out the gas. So yeah, that's all pretty neat. And coming over here to the tank itself, it is a fuel tank. Not much else to say about it. It just has a few drops of gas left in it, which I'll go probably go just dump in my burn barrel, honestly. Might as well, it'll evaporate anyways. You can see about plugging up some of the holes on this thing and getting it ready to fill up with some sauce. Tasty, tasty spaghetti sauce. that was fun. My favorite part was when I took the fuel sender out and then set the tank down, forgetting that I just opened a big hole in the bottom of it and spilled more gas everywhere. Anywho, what we have here is obviously the fuel pump, which looks a lot like a car fuel pump actually. It's got a nice sock there on the bottom of it, and then this inline fuel filter just after it with some fuel injection style fittings or clamps on it, which I'm a real big fan of. Little rubber mount there, and it actually just kind of fits into some horseshoe shapes that retain it there in the pump. And then we've got the terminals here, just O-rings and some nuts with lock washers. Pretty simple, nothing crazy going on there, and that'll just fits down in the tank, and this sits towards the back. And then we also have this, which brings power to the fuel pump via these ring terminals here. It's got a nice weather pack style connector there, and this is also the low fuel sending unit thingy. I have absolutely no idea how that works. Anyways, the tank is outside. I'm letting the rest of the fuel kind of evaporate out of it and the drain out of it and whatnot. So give that a few minutes and we'll bring it back in here. So for sealing up this enormous hole in the top, I'm just going to stick this back on, and this is secured with a whole bunch of little grub screws around the edge. Now it can go on its back like a turtle, and I gotta figure out how to plug this. So I'm gonna take this nitrile glove, fold it over a couple times, and then a couple of zip ties. That ought to be okay. This isn't a pressure vessel or anything. And we've got caps on all that, and I think that's pretty much sealed up. It's vinegar time. So vinegar is one of the more common home remedies for rust, so I figured I'd give that a try here. Just gonna go ahead and down the hatch. Only spilled most of it, doing good. These are about $2 a piece, by the way. Worth noting also that this is cleaning grade vinegar. This isn't distilled. This is also very strong. Don't sniff it like I just did. It's a very bad move. What else I have here is chain, and I'm pretty sure I'm on at least 2 lists after buying 5 things of vinegar and some chain. A lot of people use nuts and bolts, but the problem with nuts and bolts to agitate the rust and whatnot is that you then have to get a whole bunch of nuts and bolts out of your tank again. This, if I grab any section of it, I can get the whole thing back out of here. So it's important to also use a lightweight chain. If you use a heavy chain, it'll knock around in there, or if you use heavy nuts and bolts, it can dent your tank from the inside, and then you'll have a very clean but in need of PDR tank, and nobody wants that. It's terrible. That is actually incredibly exhausting. I'm going to leave that to sit. I'm going to let that sit probably overnight, and I'll come back to it, see where I'm at, agitate it a bit more, evaluate the whole situation, I guess. I just noticed how absolutely terrible the welds are on this bracket that holds the hinge. Nasty. Something else I've been doing is spending money, because of course I have. This mirror has problems. The most obvious of which is the fact that it likes to sag and be absolutely useless. The other problem is that even when it wasn't sagging, it was still completely useless because of how short the stem is. I found on the internet this MGO mirror, which is significantly longer, significantly stiffer. It's got a universal mount here, one hole here, and then a slot here, just like this one. And it also has this shim that will tilt it up at about, I don't know, another 20 degrees or so. So that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, I only ordered one. I only ended up buying the right side because I didn't pay attention to the eBay listing. So the left side is on the way. Should be here in 4 days or so, and then I'll actually be able to see behind me again. Safety first. Now, something I noticed when riding this around is something a lot of people talk about with these bikes is that they're geared really high from the factory. This has a 37 tooth rear sprocket, and the result of this is that first gear in a parking lot is just impossible. You're slipping the clutch the whole time just to get moving. You can't let the clutch out fully until like 25 miles an hour, and then first gear pulls to like 45 for some reason, and good luck ever using sixth. So what I bought is this JT Sprocket's 39 tooth replacement sprocket, which 39 or 40 tooth seems to be the ideal size for this bike. And then I went to put it on. What you're looking at is a 40 tooth JT sprocket. Someone had already gotten to it. What's funny is that even with the larger rear sprocket, the bike still feels like it's geared too high. But if you go any higher than this, people say that the highway isn't so great. So I guess I'll just stick with that 40 tooth and put this 39 on the back burner, I guess. It'll be a replacement if I need one. It'll make my gearing a little taller, but for those of you playing along at home, yes, a Ducati fuel tank full of vinegar and metal chain is fairly heavy. I was just about to leave for the parts store to buy a new fuel filter. Look at how gross this one was. And this was supposedly replaced after the tank was lined. And still, look at all that. It's pretty bad. You're stuck on there too. Let's hope that the new one doesn't get quite like this, quite as quickly. All right, time now to start getting all the fluid out and start putting this fuel tank back together. I got this new fuel filter just now, MicroGuard part number 33032. It looks very similar to what the actual Ducati service manual shows as being in here. This plastic one actually looks like it deformed slightly. Doesn't really seem like it was designed to be submerged. This metal construction probably a bit better for submersion, so I'll throw that in there as well. It is now time for a whole bunch of rinsing. I'm gonna go grab the hose and head outside. You got to neutralize the acid. I've heard that Dawn dish soap works for that. So I'm gonna do Dawn dish soap, hot water, and rinsing with a hose, and we'll see how that works out. Time for some reassembly, and I'm gonna start with this rather contentious vent hose. Not vent, sorry, this is that drain hose. Grab my new fuel filter. Tenacious little bugger. This hose was a pretty tight fit, and this is about a 1/4 of an inch longer filter, so I think I'm going to need to cut just a little bit off of this hose. This is the proper tool for this job, naturally. Now, the fuel must flow. Nipple in the tank first, then I can reach down in here. Fuel pump's in. Now I have this absolute nonsense to contend with. Hello and welcome to the part of this process that really sucks. Putting the filler back in. Lube that O-ring up real nice. Did I get it? Okay. Yes, I got it. That is in. Oh my gosh. Now I just gotta tighten up all these grub screws around here. Oh, shit. That wasn't a threaded hole at all. So what's happened here is I misunderstood the orientation of this, and now I get to do it all over again. Wow, it's installed. Wonderful. This is a 14 and it has this little copper gasket that goes in here. I want to make sure that that's present and accounted for. Well, it's a tank.